Marxist. Oh, have any of you guys ever seen this movie, Expelled? Anybody ever seen this? Great movie. If you don't have it, I think you can watch it free on YouTube. I think it's legal too. I don't think it's bootlegged or anything. But this is a really good movie. I show this movie to my students all the time. I love this movie. So this is Dr. Will Provine. He is a self-proclaimed secularist, atheist, materialist. He taught at Cornell University. I'm not sure if he's still there, but there's this great segment in this movie where he talks about his worldview and the implications of it. And so he talks, I was a Christian, and then I went to the university, and I had a professor challenge me and say that atheism was true because evolution was true. And he said, when you're done with this class, if you can tell me that evolution is not true, I'll let you be. And he's like, I took that class. He's like, and I knew evolution was true. So now he's a professor at Cornell University. Well, several years ago, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And his brother had ALS, and so he had to watch his brother struggle through ALS. I just lost a really good friend to ALS, and so he just said, it's just a devastating disease. And he goes, and now here's his worldview coming out. In the movie, he says this, if my brain tumor comes back, he goes, I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot myself. Because he says there's no life after death. He goes, I'm not going to struggle. And you look at this and you go, how could somebody think that way? Why does he think that way? Because he believes there's no life after death. His belief determines his values, which determines his actions. You start to understand why people conclude the things that they do. It's because their starting point is much different than your starting point. And we have to get back to the starting points and ask, why do people think the way that they think? It's a great movie. I mean, you need to watch it. It's just strongly, strongly encouraged. The Marxist would believe that the problem facing mankind is due to classes and struggles. Darwin's theory of evolution supports the Marxist viewpoint. So once again, Karl Marx was a huge proponent of Darwin's Origin of Species. And so a Marxist is just going to champion this because once again, if there is no God, there is no moral absolutes, there is no right and wrong. It's just autonomous. It's your opinion versus my opinion. Might over right. I've got enough people, which is really what we see in our culture today. 52% of people think this is okay. 28% of people think this is wrong. And we just follow the tides. I mean, it's kind of sad when you just see this agenda being moved forward, and all we are is pragmatic. We just say, well, if a lot of people want it, we'll do it, and if a lot of people don't want it, we won't do it. And there's no absolute. It's just this idea of like, well, let's just figure out what the people want. Marxists would identify with the ideology of this. Postmodernism, Jacques Lacan said this, biology can tell us little, because once again, postmodernism doesn't like a meta-narrative. They like your narrative. And if biology is about the study of life, which seems to be very meta, they're like, well, we really don't want to know about that because we really want to know about your story. And we really don't like this overarching theme. We really want to focus on your theme. And so biologists are going to say, yeah, we can study and we can learn certain things, but really can't learn a whole lot. The new spiritualist is going to emphasize the evolution as psychological. Once again, it's inside of us. So the issues isn't on the surface. It's not really science per se. It's really inside of us. If we could just realize our potential as gods and goddesses, if we could realize what we inside internalize, the reason we hold ourselves back is because we don't realize how great we could be. And so biology can tell us stuff, but really, it's not really dealing with our issue. It's more of like a psychological thing for us. Islam, both Christianity and Islam would probably see this from a very similar starting point where they would see the idea of a designer and a creator. Obviously, like I said, on the surface, you're going to see some similarities between definitions of Allah and God. Both Christians and Muslims part way with a materialistic worldview. And when I say materialistic worldview, I mean that they just believe all there is material. So there's no soul, there's no spirit, there's no metaphysical. So they would say there's the physical world, there's matters, there's mind and motions. They would just say it's just about the here and the now and the physical. There's nothing supernatural. Everything is natural. And then Christianity, God is the creator of all things, creation the work of God's hands. So as we teach our biology courses, you're going to see this played out from the different worldviews and how the implications. What if we went to a history class? We talk about how would these worldviews impact history. So the secularist is going to hold a view of social progress, the idea that over time the world is getting better and we are our own saviors. Now, what's interesting about this is humanism and secularism, if you go back to the 1950s and 60s or before that, you really had this idea of respect for authority, respect for the Bible as an authoritative document. And you kind of go, what was one of the shifts? And I think there was a lot of things moving during this time period, but I think one of the things that was really impactful on this was that when you start talking about the secularist idea, that man can improve his situation, when you look at the 1900s, did we improve our situation? Yeah, I mean, you talk about the technical revolution, you talk about the modern era. They said we've had more growth in the last 100 years than we did in the first 2,000. I mean, where we used to go from like a printing press, to now we have so many different things, and we can text, we can discover, we've figured out. So we've solved a lot of our problems. And so when you look at this ideology, coupled with the fact that people are going, wow, we've eradicated this disease, we've removed this problem, we've solved this problem, we've really made the world a better place, you can see how history would seem to support the idea of secularism. It answered a lot of the questions, and I think that was an impact on it. There's a great book out there, it's called Darwin's Day in America, and it shows the implications of Darwin's ideology, where he said, listen, it's not about God. We're a natural evolutionary process. We are getting better, and it kind of grew steam because people felt like, hey, we are getting better. We are figuring these things out. Marxists would believe that history is a struggle in which the move towards a state of communism is inevitable. So Marxism wants these clashes. It wants this conflict because it believes every time you have a conflict, you improve. And so you're going to have these social constructs, and they're going to fall apart, and they're going to get better, and they're going to fall apart. So history just follows this through to say this is how communism plays out, and eventually we'll reach this utopian society where everything will be perfect. There will be no haves and no have-nots. And I'll tell you what, I think communism is a great idea if it worked, but I just don't think it works. I mean, the idea that we should all, have stuff, and there shouldn't be people that struggle, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. I love this idea. I don't know if you guys saw that this girl came on CNN like 6 months ago, and she's like, I think college should be free for everybody. And Carson Tucker was like, yeah, that's a great idea. How are we going to do that? And she's like, well, like people should pay for it. He's like you, And like I think college should be free for everybody, but like I would hate to be the professor that doesn't get paid. Or the contractor that has to build a building that doesn't get paid. Nobody ever thinks about it from that perspective. I think healthcare should be free. That's a great idea, but is the doctor not getting paid? You have to realize that it has to come from somewhere. Like this idea doesn't work in reality because people need to get paid just like you expect to get paid. You expect to get an education. And so I think there's some good merit behind it, but I also think that it falls apart when it's put to the test. Postmodernism would state that there are only facts, only varying degrees of fiction. So once again, they would say, if you had a postmodern teacher, they would say, well, we can't really teach history because we really don't know. History is shaded by biased people, and winners write the history book. And I think that's true. I mean, you look at, I'll take a positive event from your guys' life. The paper when the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championships, it read a little bit differently than it did in San Francisco. The San Francisco paper is like, I can't believe it. We fell apart. We did this to ourselves. Cleveland, it's like we triumphed. We rallied around LeBron James. It is truth, I know. We are witnesses. But once again, but what are the facts? What are the facts? Well, the facts are the final score. The facts are some of the data that was put in the game, but the interpretation of that was completely different. The Warriors looked at this as the greatest catastrophe in NBA Finals, and the Cavalier fans are like, that was the greatest comeback ever, only to be outdone by the Cubs. Good night. We'll see you guys. Oh my God. I almost went the whole day without doing that. I was really pulling for the Indians. I wanted you guys to win so bad, but the GOAT had to be released. So when we talk about new spirituality, it states that there's really no point in understanding history except to name the dogma we have outgrown. And so once again, it's inside of us. Religion is too restrictive. Because you are God. I mean, who can tell you what you are? You're God, so you can autonomously decide what you want. Islam and Christianity doesn't imagine a fanciful utopia to continue, but rather direct obedience to Allah. Now, they do believe in a utopian society at some point, just not on this world. And Christianity views history as the meta-narrative. Christianity views history as redemptive narrative all throughout the process, and so you can kind of go through that. Take a 5-minute break, kind of stretch, bathroom, and then we'll wrap up for the day.